All right, let me call this hearing of the Budget Committee to order. Let me thank my colleagues for indulging the late start. We start at 10:15 instead of 10 o'clock today because I had a presentation to make over at the Supreme Court. So thank you for indulging that. We will now...
Mr. Chairman, were you arguing at the Supreme Court?
No, I was presenting to the Judicial Conference for their biennial meeting at the Supreme Court. Semi-annual, biannual, which ones meets twice a year? Semi-annual. So let me first say good morning to our committee members present and offer a special welcome to our witness, Shalonda Young, Director of Office of Management and Budget. Director Young, it is always a pleasure to have you here before the committee. There is simply no better communicator of complicated budget procedure and arcana than you, and President Biden is very lucky to have you in this important position. As the President is fond of saying, a budget is a statement of values. That message is especially salient this year as President Biden and MAGA Republicans offer starkly different visions of our country's future. On the one hand, President Biden released a fiscally responsible budget that puts the middle class first, cuts the deficit by $3 trillion, and paves the way for a stronger, safer, and more prosperous America. On the other hand, MAGA House Republicans voted to undo pro-growth investments that are creating jobs, driving a clean energy boom, and lowering costs for households across the country, all while calling to make the Trump tax cuts for the very wealthy permanent. Today, we'll hear about the values represented by the Biden budget, like fighting for the middle class, lowering costs for families, and investing in communities. For example, President Biden's budget guarantees 12 weeks of family and medical leave. It would bring back the expanded child tax credit, which cut child poverty nearly in half. And it would increase funding for Pell Grants to make higher education more accessible and affordable to all students. The Biden budget lowers health care and prescription drug costs for tens of millions of Americans. For example, it would build on Medicare's authority to negotiate the prices of prescription drugs, a history-making initiative in the Inflation Reduction Act. So Medicare could negotiate the prices of at least 50 drugs a year, reducing the cost of medicines and saving Medicare $200 billion over 10 years. The Biden budget reflects the president's continued commitment to fighting climate change, a danger too many Republicans pretend does not even exist, ending unfair fossil fuel tax breaks, and requiring high-flying owners of private jets to pay fairly for the damages they cause. As we have heard in this committee, the International Monetary Fund estimates fossil fuel subsidies at over $600 billion, with a B, billion dollars per year. By contrast, what do House Republicans value? They value a tax code in which billionaires, big oil, and big pharma keep getting massive handouts while the middle class foots the bill, in which corporations' contribution to America's fiscal health continues to dwindle. And I'd refer you to this graphic that shows how much of corporate tax revenues are in our overall revenue picture. They are less and less in balance. MAGA Republicans value defunding the tax police so that billionaire tax cheats can keep cheating with impunity. And, as we've seen, they want secrecy. They will not come clean with the American people about which vital and popular services they would actually cut to help the billionaire elite. That should tell you something. One thing we've learned, when Republicans say deficit reduction, it's not going to come out of the pockets of billionaires. It's going to come out of yours. They admit to wanting to extend the Trump tax cuts skewed toward the wealthy and corporations at a $3.5 trillion cost. They rely on economic fairy dust and fantastical growth numbers to claim that corporate giveaways will pay for themselves. A magical tale rebutted in this committee by Republican and Democratic witnesses alike. Tax cuts simply do not pay for themselves. President Biden's budget would reduce the deficit by ensuring that big corporations can't get away with paying nothing and that billionaires don't pay lower tax rates than teachers and firefighters. It would end write-offs for corporations that offer exorbitant compensation to executives and close loopholes for big corporations that outsource jobs and shift profits offshore. And it would make sure the IRS can see to it that the wealthy and well-connected pay the taxes they owe. As we heard in testimony before this committee, those investments save money and have a fiscal return as high as 12 to 1. Unlike tax handouts, tax enforcement does pay for itself. Fixing our corrupted, billionaire-coddling tax code is good for its own sake, but the revenue also can support investments in the American people and reduce the deficit. When the wealthy contribute a little bit more to Medicare, we can extend its solvency indefinitely, as achieved by my Medicare and Social Security Fair Share Act. Lifting the cap so the wealthy pay their fair share will protect Social Security. My bill does just that, extending Social Security solvency indefinitely. And I look forward to working on these bills with the administration. Republicans claim they no longer want to cut Medicare and Social Security benefits. If that's true, the only other way to ensure long-term solvency is making the wealthy chip in more. The Biden budget is a proposal for how to reduce deficits by investing in our families and communities, by demanding that the tax system be fair, and by actually enforcing our existing tax laws on the wealthy. Deficit reduction the Biden way leads to a declining debt to GDP ratio, a sound marker of a responsible fiscal path. Creating a safe, prosperous, and fair nation. Those are our values. House Republicans would rather gut essential programs and services to help their rich donors get even richer. Which path we take is the choice that's before us today. I look forward to today's conversation on the President's budget.